Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in my last video on my channel in which I discussed how Zenkais work in Dragon Ball Z, I also brought up another topic that I'm going to be discussing in this video, which has to do with Goku becoming a Super Saiyan, and really all the Super Saiyans that came after, which is that Goku, despite a common misconception, was never really intended to be the only Super Saiyan in the Dragon Ball franchise. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people talk about online and use as a criticism, particularly of the Cell Saga and everything moving forward, when it comes to characters becoming a Super Saiyan. Of course, obviously, the Saiyans. So, let me get into the manga and bring up why this is a misconception and why this point of view is actually incorrect. So let's do that right now. Okay, so to recap this, as we know, on the planet Namek, when Goku and everyone was fighting against Frieza, what happened? Well, Frieza, went and bursted a chestnut and caused the carrot to get really mad and rage out and dye his hair blonde and get a 50 times multiplier on top of that, becoming a Super Saiyan. The legendary Super Saiyan, as it were. And after this, Goku, his power was so great by comparison to Frieza that he was even able to topple the evil emperor of the universe. No, not Sheev Palpatine, especially not in the sequels, but Frieza. So a lot of people after this moment, when other characters in the Cell Saga, as you can see here, started to take on this form with basically every single Saiyan becoming a Super Saiyan with the exception of the baby Trunks in the main timeline, a lot of people started to say that it was really diluting the Super Saiyan form, that only when this guy here, Goku, was a Super Saiyan, did it really feel earned or did it really truly feel impressive, and every single time a Vegeta or a future Trunks or even a Gohan became Super Saiyan, it went against the legendary idea of the Super Saiyan that was proposed in the Dragon Ball manga in the previous arc, as well as in the Dragon Ball Z anime when Vegeta was discussing it in depth. But is that really true? Well, let's actually go into the history of the Super Saiyan being mentioned and talk about. Let's see if it actually is that case. So the very first time that we actually hear about a Super Saiyan is all the way back in the first arc of Dragon Ball Z in the Saiyan saga of the manga. More specifically, after Vegeta and Nappa are listening in on the conversation with Piccolo, where, he monologues like a villain because he still wasn't past that phase in his character development yet, and told them about the Dragon Balls, what happens? Well, Vegeta talks about how they should use the Dragon Balls to wish for immortality. Then when the two of them are on their way to the planet, I guess before their suspended animation, they're talking about the power of Kakarot's son, Gohan, and saying just how powerful he was for a child, in that it seems that mixing Saiyan and Earthling blood begets a powerful hybrid, which is a theme in Dragon Ball, that the hybrids are more powerful than the traditional Saiyans. And then, of course, Nappa, what does he say? A Super Saiyan, eh? So if we spawn a flock of them ourselves, we could build another Saiyan empire. Nappa's thinking with his other head, not this one that we could see on screen. And Vegeta says, don't be stupid. Do you want a lot of ingrate brats running around with powers greater than ours? Oh, right, says Nappa. We must exterminate all life on Earth, says Vegeta. So, as early as this point in the story, we're already hearing about the concept of a Super Saiyan, not the Super Saiyan, not a singular being that would only ever be the one Super Saiyan every once in a while, but a Super Saiyan, as in multiple Super Saiyans. So let's go to the next section of where this was mentioned on Namek. And who's the next person to actually mention the Super Saiyan in the story? Well, someone who probably knows more about the Super Saiyan legend than anyone else in the story at this point, which is Frieza, the very one who destroyed planet Vegeta because he was afraid of the Saiyans banding against him, either together or with a Super Saiyan being born amongst them. And look what he says right here. This is where he tells everyone to bring in the Ginyu Force to fight against the Saiyans that are on Namek, as well as, Goku, who he kind of knows about. And he says, I've been thinking it over. I feel that a very powerful Saiyan is developing and might eventually become a genuine threat. I had thought that it was Vegeta at first, but that seems less likely now. And then they're talking about the Saiyan on Earth and how he wasn't that powerful, so on and so forth, which Frieza would get a rude awakening there soon. And then what does Frieza say? The Saiyans do indeed seem to have bottomless combat abilities. They improve greatly every time they survive a battle, talking about the Zenkai boost, which I talked about in that previous video. It does seem absurd that one could ever be a match for me, of course, but I must think of the future and nip the bud while I can. It would be more than a nuisance if they were to become Super Saiyans. Look at what he says. It would be more than a nuisance if they, plural, were to become Super Saiyans, plural. So again, Frieza, the one who destroyed Plant Vegeta because of his knowledge of this idea, and then Dragon Ball Minus and some of the other stuff like the Jocko manga and, the Broly movie, he expands upon this and knows about the Super Saiyan God as well, somehow. He knows better than possibly even Vegeta, as I'll get into momentarily, about what a Super Saiyan really could be, and just how powerful he could be, considering that no one else even comes close to Frieza's level of power. But Frieza says that more than one Saiyan could hypothetically become a Super Saiyan. So you can argue that that initial point with Nappa and Vegeta talking about it was more that it would just be like a mutant Saiyan that would be really powerful, whereas Frieza, he has a way more expansive knowledge, and this is also in the same arc that the Super Saiyan really debuted, so as a result, this is probably more in line with the concept that we see later on when Goku actually transforms into this Super Saiyan form that we see everyone here on display, and as a result, Frieza is already established this early on in Volume 6 of the Dragon Ball Z manga, the Dragon Ball Z section, the manga that was released in America as Dragon Ball Z, even though it's all one manga, that there could be more Super Saiyans. And really, nothing in the arc ever actually says that there couldn't be. There becomes a greater focus, as we'll go to see after this, on more than one, or rather just one Super Saiyan, as we see in a moment. But even before that, there is another character who's very knowledgeable, and that is Guru, the Grand Elder, Saichoro, who says to Krillin, when he's talking to him, explaining how the Namekian on Earth that created the Dragon Balls, the child of Katats, the nameless Namekian, Kami, Piccolo, so on, was defeated. And he says he's shocked that somebody would be able to defeat him, especially a Saiyan. And then he says, but then he was a Saiyan of the Dragon Clan, those who created the Dragon Balls, which are the most powerful type of Namekian. And then he says right here, by a Saiyan, it is true that the Saiyans are terrible, but to have killed the prodigy of the Dragon Clan, is it possible that he was a Super Saiyan? Again, a Super Saiyan. And what does this happen? Well, he reads Krillin's mind. He learns about, the foolish choice, as he says, of him splitting into two, which greatly diminished his power. It says by half here, obviously way more than half. And that's the only reason he lost. But according to Guru, even at this point, a Super Saiyan is the only one who could have rivaled the Nameless Namekian, as we see in the next arc, when Piccolo becomes the Nameless Namekian and is standing toe-to-toe with these other Super Saiyans against the Cell Juniors and surpasses them when he initially fuses before they go into the time chamber. So we do get numerous other mentions of the Super Saiyan, mainly coming from Vegeta as the story goes on. For example, when he sees that Goku shows up to fight the Ginyu Force and he's shocked by just how powerful he's become, he says, wait, why is he so calm? Why doesn't he show any anger? Could he actually be? And then what does Vegeta say right here? He could never become the legendary Super Saiyan, that stinking Kakarot, that amateur fighter. It could not be impossible because he's assuming that only he could be. And this is where we finally get that kind of backstory that everyone remembers of, they say a Super Saiyan appears only once in 1,000 years. I've always said it was just a myth, and I was sure that even if it were possible, the only warrior who could possibly become one was me. So Vegeta really doesn't have as much knowledge or as much understanding of the Super Saiyan form as a lot of people like to make it out to be. He seems to believe that, it's a myth at the most compared to Frieza, who might side with that a little bit, but still took so much precaution because of his knowledge of this, which it might be greater than even Vegeta's, that led him to wipe out the Saiyans. And Vegeta seems to think that only he could be because of his royal blood, because of his elite status. But again, he doesn't really know any of this. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. He's just kind of coming up with these ideas and basing it on his own pride as the Prince of the Saiyans and thinking he's better. But then we actually sees Goku on display as he one-shots Recoome in a kind of funny scene where Recoome is actually, charging up his attack. Vegeta is saying, is he the Super Saiyan? He's utterly surpassed that strength. Completely different. Is the legend true? So this is where it starts to become more of like the legend of the Super Saiyan, of the Super Saiyan, as opposed to a Super Saiyan. But as I said early on, what we saw was that it wasn't just considered the Super Saiyan, but rather a singular one of possibly a plural class them. Of course, then when Goku goes to power up against Captain Ginyu, shows his Kaioken revs up to 180,000, Captain Ginyu also mentions the Super Saiyan, and he says, you must be the legend, the Super Saiyan. Vegeta says, could somebody explain that? The Super Saiyan, the mightiest warrior in the cosmos. Goku said that, actually. How could this be? The only thing that Master Frieza ever feared. And then, of course, he says, because this is the idea that the Super Saiyan has to be ruthless and, cold-hearted and wipe everyone out, he says, you don't want to waste time fighting me. You don't want to kill me. The legend of the Super Saiyan holds that he will love bloodshed and battle above all. You're no Super Saiyan. You may have tried to become one, but you failed. And this is the point where Captain Ginyu takes over his body. Other references we get along the way are to characters that are powering up. Vegeta saying, oh, you're not a Super Saiyan, Goku, because you are not strong of your will to kill people. He says right here, after he, rests or whatever, he'll be a Super Saiyan. He'll be able to take care of Goku, no problem. After he is fighting against Jace, he's saying he's becoming a Super Saiyan, then he wipes him out. After he heals, Vegeta also says that I finally transformed, but Vegeta obviously doesn't really know what a Super Saiyan is. After all, he keeps assuming that he's become one, but again, he's never actually transformed into one up until this point. He even says of Gohan when he rages out, as you could see in this panel that I'll bring up when I could actually find it on my screen, and he attacks Frieza and beats him down. Vegeta says again, unbelievably, he's got so much power that he doesn't even know about until he snaps and loses his head. Could he be the Super Saiyan in progress? So Vegeta constantly is making these claims about people being a Super Saiyan, but I think it's kind of clear that he is not a reliable narrator when it comes to this, despite being the Prince of the Saiyans. Maybe he heard about the legend from King Vegeta, but the fact of the matter is he doesn't really know what he's talking about. And even, when Vegeta is laying dead or right about to die on the ground after Frieza punctures, his body with the blast, he sees Goku on display, and then he says, he's the Super Saiyan. You heard me, the most powerful, the legendary warrior in the universe. You're through. I'm glad to have lived to see it. And Frieza makes sure he doesn't actually live to see it, because if he did, he would have known that that's not a Super Saiyan, it's just a really powerful base Saiyan, and a real Super Saiyan is what we see right here with Goku. So again, I don't think that there's any real merit to say in-universe that the idea that there could be more than one Super Saiyan in any way is a retcon or kind of going against anything that we see in this arc. Goku's the first to become the Super Saiyan because he gets powerful enough, he gets raged out after he sees his best friend die, and, instead of becoming an Ozaru, as Frieza says, what's happening? Saiyans only transform into great apes, then what is this, Because Frieza still hasn't even seen it himself until now. The point is that this doesn't dilute anything just because the fact that we see this. It was never intended to be a singular solitary form. Another thing that people like to say is that the Super Saiyan, was diluted because other characters become different versions of it. But again, it's never once said that that can't be a thing they can do, that they can't unlock further forms on top of it, that they can't develop the Super Saiyan. If anything, maybe the fact that they can is what truly makes it so legendary, that they can turn that Super Saiyan into advanced versions of itself, like the Grade 2, Grade 3, Full Power, and eventually Super Saiyan 2. And then, of course, Super Saiyan 3 like Goku here, and so on. And Goku even need to train in the afterlife to achieve this form. So again, it's not really diluting anything. It's just taking it to, even further beyond, as Sean Schemmel said in the English dub. Now, perhaps you can make the argument, of course, that Goten Trunks becoming a Super Saiyan without, really much effort at all, as children dilutes the Super Saiyan form, that Kale and Caulifla becoming a Super Saiyan the day they hear about it just because they get a tingly back feeling that they could channel, so on and so forth, dilutes it. And those are definitely better arguments you can make. I mean, after all, at that point, it was the intent of Toriyama to kind of spoof it, to make fun of it, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, I don't think that anything in the Cell Saga really dilutes or weakens the impact of Super Saiyan. It worked within the arc that it happened, but the entire arc, we're told, or at least several times within it, that there could be more than one Super Saiyan. And then when we see in the next arc, it's only logical to think that that's a logical extension of what we saw before. So ultimately, that is why Goku was never meant to be the only Super Saiyan, and there are always meant to be multiple. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. What do you think about this? Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future, and I'll see you all next time.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.